Well, that kind of segues into my weekend surprise, which was Notre Dame. 2 weeks ago, I hopped on here, and they were on my overrated list, and deservedly so. But what I did say was that in true Notre Dame fashion, what they'll do is they'll kind of scratch and claw to these,
You did say that.
Barely getting a victory, like a 3-point win over Toledo or whatever, and then all of a sudden they keep scratching out these wins, and then all of a sudden their confidence builds, and then the floodgates just open on somebody. And that's what I think we saw with Wisconsin. Now, for me, normally you see it a little bit later in the season when you look up and you're going, oh my goodness, Notre Dame's 8-0 all of a sudden. Well, I thought I was surprised by that. They dominated that game. And shout out to Coach Brian Kelly, who passed Newt Rockne as the winningest coach in school history. I mean, that right there is pretty impressive just in today's world where it's what have you done for me lately, where you can stay at a program for as long as he has, which he's over a decade or he's at a decade now.
Yeah.
And to be able to sustain a high level of success that he has. So I'm not hating on it. I mean, I think sometimes my gripe is, we even said it earlier, where if you're Notre Dame, you usually have a season full of mid-tier conference teams. So you're playing Power 5 teams, but it's usually mid-tier teams from each Power 5 conference. And if you just win, like all you have to do is win. You don't have to get style points. If you just have that 11-0, 12-0 record with no conference championship game pending, you are automatically in because you're Notre Dame. And I do have a little bit of a gripe with that, but even though the true pure fan in me understands why. I mean, it's Notre Dame, it's the history, it's the money, it's that's a brand that you want in the college football playoff every year if you're college football. So I get it, but I like I said, 2 weeks ago, I got on here and said they were overrated based off what they had shown to that point. But I also did speak to how I thought it might play out, and here we are kind of seeing it already starting to happen. My other surprise was Kentucky. They've sort of quietly crept to a 4-0 record, and they're 2-0 in SEC play. We're going to see if they're for real these next 3 weeks because they've got Florida, LSU, and Georgia back to back to back. And then I also wanted to highlight, I don't know if you've been on Twitter or social media, but they had a player go viral he pushed over a team manager. Now it was kind of funny, but then it was kind of sad. But then I went and actually looked at the player's Twitter, and he just was like, he said, I can't believe I went viral for that. I feel sick to my stomach. I do think on some level, now if you just watch it, it looks like he just blatantly pushed the guy. But I do think on some level it was kind of just a reflex of he was slowing down, he was in the heat, and then it's just one of those reflexes that he just kind of did it, and it looks a lot worse than it probably was. But anyway, shout out to him. And then my last surprise, B. Holmes, was UTSA, the Roadrunners.
Come on, man.
That's the University of Texas at San Antonio. So they've gotten off to a fast start for one of those group of 5 type teams, and they just knocked off Memphis yesterday. And they got Jeff Traylor out there who, if you don't know, if you're a listener, he's a legendary Texas high school football coach. He pretty much is like, a celebrity out in East Texas. I mean, that was just where he was really became highly esteemed, highly respected as a high school coach. Went to the collegiate level. Most recently was at the University of Arkansas, actually, as a running backs coach and associate head coach. And then from there, got the UTSA job, and he's got those boys rolling. And former Razorback Barry Lunny Jr., who actually led us to a SEC championship, first ever SEC championship appearance as a quarterback. He is the offensive coordinator. So I just wanted to shout out UTSA because they're making some noise over there in East Texas. So that's my surprises.
Love it, man. Man, my biggest surprise, I didn't have a ton, but I did want to shout this out, man, and it was hard. It was a game I watched yesterday. My biggest surprise, man, was Rutgers' tenacity, man. Rutgers, they came into the game 3-0, and Greg Schiano's back at Rutgers. Rutgers legend over there, Greg Schiano. Funny tidbit, I did not know this. When Lloyd Carr was retiring from Michigan, they actually offered the job to Schiano. Schiano accepted it. He accepted the gig and then said, let me sleep on it. Went and thought it over, and then by the end of the day said, no, I like what we're building here at Rutgers. I'm going to stick. And it had me thinking, like, man, what would Michigan have become if we would have got Schiano instead of Rich Rod? I think that the program looks a lot different. Now you get the Michigan resources, you know. And unless you're a true college football fanatic, you can remember how great Rutgers was playing under Schiano. I think Big East at the time. Like, he took a no-name program and they were competing.
We 5-0. We
5-0. Yeah, it was like it was a big deal. So I was like, man, that would have actually been an amazing hire back then. But we should. I know that whole hire. I have a friend that works in the athletic department, so that's a whole different day of what happened during that era. But anyways, I want to give shout out to them, even though they played my Michigan Wolverines. We came out with a win. But this was why I was impressed with Rutgers. So we come out. Now Michigan, we left 2 touchdowns on the field. We should have probably won in a half, like 20. We should have probably won in a half 28-3 instead of 20-3. So, but at this point, how we've been playing the last 3 weeks, man, we go into the half like that. We're running the ball. I think our quarterback got through for 150 yards, only 4 incompletions. Like, I mean, we're humming. And at this point, so far, 3 weeks into the season, most teams know that's game over for you, baby. Like, that's game over. You might as well just come out, roll over, play dead. Let us just run the clock out, and we're going to go home and start worrying about Wisconsin. Rutgers came out playing like the game was theirs to win. Like, they came out ready to fight. And if it wasn't for our defense coming up with a last-minute turnover, I think they potentially could have beat us. Because here's the thing, Trey. We didn't get a first down until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We only threw for 7 yards in the second half. 1 first down the entire second half. So, first off, shout out to our defense. And that probably could have been a big surprise because we got a new defensive coordinator, but I don't want to be too much of a homer. But Rutgers really played us tough, man. And the offensive coordinator played a good scheme. It was just like they kept Rutgersing themselves. Like, they were just leaving little things. Like, they weren't able to put it all together. But I want to give a shout out. That was a big surprise, man. Because I was a little uncertain about the Schiano hire. I was like, are we really just basking in what used to be? Are we basking on the nostalgia? Can he really – this is a new era of college football. Just because you've been successful before doesn't mean you're going to be successful now. And I'm going to come out and say it. He's going to be successful at Rutgers. Man, he's building a fence around the Jersey corridor up here. Like, and Jersey has a lot of good football talent. It's just a small state. If you go to Jersey, you need to stay at Rutgers. He's going to attack the DMV area. There's a lot of good football talent in the DMV, and I think he's going to shock a lot of people. I think the only thing that's going to hurt him is he's on the wrong side of the conference division lines. If he's on the other side, I think Rutgers would really do some damage.
Yeah,
but
like if he's over there with Minnesota and Nebraska and all those guys.
Yeah, Iowa, those guys. I think within the next 2-3 years, they're competing, at least going to the Big Ten championship game. But the fact is, you're on the side with Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State. That's going to be a hard division to win. But they're going to shock a lot of people. So that was my biggest surprise, man. It wasn't the same old Rutgers. This is a new day. It's a new dawn, and Schiano has those boys ready to play, man.